Namaste. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been giving these lectures since the year 2000. Can you hear me there?
Now we can.
So I have been giving these lectures since 2000 AD. In 2022, I lost a front seat listener to my lucubrations. I became dispirited. I fell silent. This month, though, I suddenly woke up and told myself I could yet be useful in life. This is the only way I can be. Hence, this exercise. Friends, in the everlasting tussle between good and evil, just and unjust, the Gita despises hopelessness and condemns inaction. In the Mahabharata, two mighty armies, heaving with excitement, confront each other. Elephants trumpet, horses neigh, straining at their reins, charioteers, masters of warfare and withering archery, tightly control their uneasy, eager steeds, bristling with their weapons, foot soldiers in astronomical numbers eye their opponents with mortal intent. A cataclysmic conflict threatens to engulf the world. Sadly, the world has been there more than once. At the center of the battlefield, between the two armies, poised to slaughter each other, Arjuna, the commander-in-chief of the Pandavas, lays down his weapons and refuses to fight, to open the floodgates of slaughter, death, and destruction. Etan nahantum ichhami घ्नौति मधुसूदन api trailokya rajasya heto kim no mahi krute. That is the Sanskrit of the original, ladies and gentlemen. I do not want to kill them, even though they may kill me. Not even for sovereignty over the three worlds. How much the less for the kingdom on this earth. Katham nageyam asmabhya papadasman nivartitum kurakshaya kritam dosham papashyadbhir janardana. O Krishna, how are we not to know that we must turn back from evil? The wrong resulting from this destruction is indeed quite self-evident. Choice of the right path may be exceedingly difficult if your kith and kin do not see eye to eye, as they unjustly oppose you with indefensible selfish motives, guiding their thought and their action. That is surely a painful predicament, a test of your integrity. Duty dharma, and the call to karma, action, must disregard all opposition in unwavering pursuit of your purpose. Pratyavayo na vidyate. No obstacle whatsoever exists. Krishna dispels the doubts and dilemma of Arjuna when he says that the wise do not grieve for those gone or for those who are still there. Krishna, like Arjuna and everyone else, was always there, will always be there. The soul is immortal and never dies. It goes from one decaying body to another as a person discards worn-out garments to put on new ones. The soul can neither kill nor be killed. Nayam hanti na hanyate. I have kept the Sanskrit quotes to the minimum. It is not born, nor does it ever die. And having been, will not pass out of existence. Ancient, unborn, eternally existing, it does not die when the body perishes. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam prano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Death and rebirth are inevitable. And the Upanishads also say so. Esha hyatma nanashyati. Seek, therefore, the shelter of your mind. Buddhau sharanam anviccha. Krishna tells Arjuna, I am the intellect of the wise. Buddhir buddhimatam asmi. Knowing yourself to be superior to the intellect, control the mind with the intellect, and thus destroy the unconquerable enemy in the form of desire. No one can ever be free from action. See action in inaction and inaction in action. One who acts without attachment to the fruits of action, always satisfied, always independent, even while acting, does nothing at all. Dharma or duty is the key. Duty is paramount. Purusha or self is distinct from matter. Action is fundamental to the nature of the universe. One must act. Hand over the fruits of action to God, to Krishna. Action must be free from attachment. Action performed with detachment will lead to liberation. Hand over the fruits of action to God. Devotion to God is central. Our salvation lies in devotion to God, who will liberate us through His grace. Now, who is God? Who is God? Difficult question. God is sitting there, ladies and gentlemen. God relates to us. God comes down to us. God works for the world and manifests himself in times of trouble. You've just seen that. God safeguards dharma. Dharma signifies the rule of law and duty. We behold a majestic God, but God and devotee are truly close. And God is also a companion. One must act to fulfill duty, one's dharma. What really matters is the inner renunciation of the fruits of action. The sacrifice of personal desire for a higher good, for pervasive welfare, is nishkama karma, action unattached to desire. When, therefore, action is performed solely out of obligation, with no attachment to its fruits, such a sacrifice is called pure. Satyagaha satviko matah. Nishkama karma is nothing but selfless service for universal welfare. And there is no higher duty than the welfare of the whole world, as the great Emperor Ashoka said in the 3rd century before Christ. Nastihi kammataram sarvaloka hitatpa. That is Prakrit. There is no higher duty than the welfare of the entire world. The Gita, ladies and gentlemen, affirms life. The Gita affirms the world. The Gita affirms humanity. Divinity is both immanent and transcendent, though essentially monistic. In me subsist all beings, says Krishna. God creates the world out of a fragment of himself and remains. Krishna, therefore, is immanent, incarnate, and always approachable. And he comes again and again to relieve the world of its misery. And if God does so, why should human beings engaged in the pursuit of dharma also not hope to do so? Personally, I do not believe in the kind of moksha which is a one-way ticket to nowhere. The great men who come from time to time to relieve the misery of this world, to give a helping hand to humanity, have the divinity in them, and they are incarnations of the divine in differing degrees. With right knowledge, therefore, one would have no attachment to the fruits of action. Devotion, knowledge, action, and non-attachment to the phala or any result whatsoever lead to true fulfillment. Exemption from action is not possible, is not permissible. Action is indeed essential. According to Gandhi, ahimsa or non-violence is a prerequisite to perfect detachment without any detriment to right action. The performance of selfless duty is a prerequisite to meaningful happiness. Friends, a poet writes, and the poet writes with an express intent and purpose, with a meaning and a message. that he or she seeks to convey through his or her text. But then the text goes beyond its bounds and acquires its own life, acquires its own momentum as it circulates with interpretations and meanings far beyond the vision of the original author. That, friends, is true of the Gita, as it is true of all other great texts of humanity. You cannot run away from the battle of life, from the war between good and evil. Listen to the inner voice, the voice of your conscience, your God, your Krishna. This dialogue goes on. This dialogue is interminable, goes on forever in the mind of every thinking person. There are two parties, two sides in the Mahabharata war. Gandhi regards Duryodhana and his party the baser impulses in man, and Arjuna and his party as the higher impulses. The field of battle is our own body. An eternal battle rages between these two camps inside ourselves. To Gandhi, the whole Mahabharata story is, if you like, a figment of the imagination, a story that was fabricated to illustrate this point. The eternal in man cannot be killed. The spirit never dies. It is the body that perishes. Duty to others and to God cannot be ignored, cannot be set aside. A meditative life is not the only way. Going to the forest and sitting inside a cave, will it help you? So, yoga is union with God through action, devotion and knowledge, resulting in evenness of mind, a species of peace which is ever the same. There is no room for despair. Life is action. Even Krishna is always active, ever active. What we need is dispassionate detachment. Duty, dharma, and its observance is the way. Swadharma, one's duty to himself or herself, leads to supreme exertion in fulfillment of a moral obligation. That is where we discover the strength of Gita. It does not demand the impossible, even as it provides spiritual inspiration. As Franklin Egerton, a man who wrote on the Gita, said, it holds out the hope of salvation in terms which are not out of reach of the great mass of people. This is a quote. Through karma yoga, the yoga of action, work is ennobled, dignified, glorified. Action above desire will lead to one's goal. The Gita disproves the claim by many Western scholars and critics that inactivity is an inbuilt, intrinsic characteristic of Hinduism. Selfless work has been a basic Hindu code of conduct since time immemorial. Friends, detachment from desire inaction is only the first step on the path to union with God. Bhakti, devotion, is a key element. Ananya chetha satatam yo mam smarati nityashah. The personal God, Krishna, is suited to all classes of men and women through karma, action, bhakti, devotion, and jnana, knowledge. His grace enables them all to attain the supreme goal of untold bliss. Yanti param gate, untold bliss, unimaginable bliss. Friends, the mystical vision of the Supreme is only occasionally and exceptionally revealed as an act of grace. The Virata Rupa or the Vishwarupa of Krishna is a pictorial metaphor of transience, of anitya, of the world's dying and being reborn, going through ceaseless cycles of birth and death. The ultimate reality overwhelms. Arjuna is unable to confront it. The personal form of Krishna, however, is accessible to one and all. The personal God of grace, of the kind sought by humans, is always there for one and all. He is supreme, he is Brahman, but he can also be a friend and an advisor. Sarva bhuteshu yedaikam bhavam avyayam ikshite avibhaktam vibhakteshu tajjnanam viddhi sattvakam. So, when one loses one when one sees one undivided spiritual nature in all living beings, despite their division into different forms, one acquires pure knowledge. Bhakti, devotion, jnana, knowledge support each other. And bhakti or devotion is a medium of karma yoga, of meaningful action, as it is also a pathway to knowledge. One who attains the Supreme has grasped the essence of karma, bhakti, and jnana, action, devotion, and knowledge. Right knowledge, accompanied by devotion, will lead to selfless work, which we may call karma yoga, like the dinners thrown by Tausif Khan. The yoga of action, positive action, productive action, fruitful action. The marriage of action with knowledge and devotion is a signal contribution of the Gita. Its principal matches to the heartbeat of Indian life and culture. The soul cannot be killed. In the battle between right and wrong, therefore, one should not, cannot stand aside. Action is inevitable, but should be performed without attachment to the consequences thereof. Do not be dumb and do not be numb. Act and dedicate it to the Supreme. Nishkama karma, action devoid of attachment, should and would necessarily concern itself with the welfare of the whole world. The idea that is reflected in the famous expression, Loka Sangraha. Tvamaksharam paramam veditavyam, tvamasya vishwasya param nidhanam, tvamavyah shashvata dharmagupta, sanatanastum purusho mato me. Well, Krishna is eternal. He is the ultimate source of being and becoming, and therefore the ultimate goal of knowledge. He created the world out of himself, but he is far and much more than the world of which we are part and which we inhabit. The search for the ultimate truth and reality, therefore, begins with us, within us. We are clearly and unmistakably told that Krishna inheres us and resides in us in equal measure, samam sarveshu bhuteshu. This is very important. This means, therefore, that all distinctions of high and low are false and indeed sacrilegious. To treat anyone as inferior or lower than us is an insult to his majesty and his purpose. Krishna clearly, repeatedly tells us that he is the intellect of the wise, and he commands us to seek the shelter of our minds. Buddhau sharanam anviccha. It is our minds that we have to stir, that we have to rouse from their stupor, from their narrow, selfish, personal obsessions, to comprehend and confront our unity of being and becoming, which will then make it incumbent upon us to work for our collective, all-embracing welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no room for inactivity or for inaction. We have been blessed with autonomy, freedom of thought and action. If we think and act wisely, to uphold justice, to promote well-being and happiness, to cultivate knowledge, and contribute to the collective pool of knowledge, to make sure that our actions do not hurt others, but only help them, we may hope to sample a species of bliss and beatitude that is ineffable. There is no room for despair. The call to action is imperative. Today is precious. This evening is precious. We know little about tomorrow. We are the authors of action. We are our own masters. Duty is synonymous with our identification with the hopes and fears of common humanity. With our resolute action to defeat injustice, with our hearts and hands to act in concert to deliver the world from the tyranny of acquisitive greed, from the atrocities of intolerant ideologies. Action, meaningful action, to defeat each and every variety of injustice is what the Gita commands, regardless of any consequences. Friends, our action may lead to the realization of our objectives, the achievement of our goals, but we may at times fail. We may fall short of total success. Despair, as I said before, is out of order. Inaction is forbidden. Try and try and try again. Do not give up. Do not tire. as long as life lasts. And the uprightness of your karma or action is measured in terms of peace and justice, triumphing over intolerance and atrocity, greed and insensate violence. Action, ladies and gentlemen, is life, with its pulsations of trials and triumphs. There is no obstacle whatsoever to halt or hinder. If you have questions, ask yourself to answer them. Think and ruminate. Buddhar buddhimatam asmi. I am the intellect of the wise. This lecture, ladies and gentlemen, invites you to introspect, understand, and come to your own conclusions. It teases you, it pricks you, and invites you to philosophically confront the agony of the human dilemma and decide for yourselves what is right and what is wrong, what should be done and what should be anathema that is not done. Please tell the world what you feel. Vachane kadaridrata. Words are never wanting. Words should be never wanting. Friends, we are what we think. With our thoughts, we make the world. आदम खुदा नहीं, लेकिन खुदा के नूर से आदम जुदा नहीं. Man is not God, but he is not aloof or precluded from the glory of God. Striving to be godlike is no doubt the right endeavor, a search for the true vision of self. And with that, thank you very much.